All right, good morning, everyone. I am going to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Kent County Board of Commissioners for this morning. Thank you for being here. I think that some of our commissioners are still coming through traffic, so but our illustrious clerk is here so we can proceed, and if you would go ahead and call the order.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Commissioners Antor.
Here.
Bolter.
Here.
Vice Chair Breeby.
Here.
Commissioners Bulkowski.
Present.
Burl.
Here.
Green. Hennessy.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Coleman. LeGrand.
Here.
McLeod.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Ponstein.
Here.
Skaggs. Sparks. Teal.
Here.
Womack. Wooden.
Here.
Chairstack.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 14 members present, 5 absent. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I will now call upon Commissioner Jones for the invocation. Good morning.
Good morning. We all have an opportunity as commissioners to do this invocation, and sometimes we do it ourselves and sometimes we invite guests. As I was thinking about my options, I realized the guest I would like to invite is no longer with us. So I am going to be dedicating the invocation this morning to a gentleman that I worked with for many, many years. He was a wonderful treasurer and trustee of Cannon Township. He was a good and faithful servant to the residents of Kent County. And with that, I will make this prayer in honor of Dick Davies, who really was such a mentor and truly missed in our community. So with that, let us pray. Dear God, please bless the residents of Kent County. Please give this board your blessings for wisdom, patience, and understanding as we deliberate some very difficult, challenging topics. We ask you to help everyone in our residence that needs help and looks for help. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, let's begin with the special orders of business, and we are blessed to have Kendrick Heinlein here with us from AAA. Good morning, Kendrick. Good to have
Morning,
you
Chair
here.
Stuck. So I'm Kendrick Heinlein. I'm the new Executive Director at the Area Agency on Aging of Western Michigan. It's been 27 days, so too hard to tell how it's going so far, but the lights are on and no smoke's coming out of the windows, so we're doing okay. I really am blessed to have great staff at the Area Agency on Aging. They really are what makes the agency what it is. So while I joke about being new to the agency, in this position, I've been with it for 6 years this December. Have a long focus for helping older adults and look forward to working with all of you. A lot of you have had the pleasure of already, but for those of you who have not, please don't hesitate to reach out to me and communicate with me if you'd like to meet. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about our agency. So I want to go over our history. I will say I've cut out 22 slides in this presentation. So trying to be quick, but there's a lot to talk about, so don't hesitate to reach out. So at the agency, we were created in 1974 through the Older Americans Act, really looking to serve older adults and adults with dignity and independence. We want to be the one-stop shop for resources, and we want to make sure that we're getting those resources out to older adults and caregivers. Our mission at the Area Agency is to help older adults and adults living with a disability to provide a service, an array of services with an independence and dignity to make sure that they have what they need to age how they want throughout the community. Not only with this mission, what we practice at the agency, but we also want to give people the resources they need to age. Aging in place and having them be able to dictate how they age is what we focus on. We're not only Kent County, we serve 8 counties outside of Kent, so Allegan, Ionia, Kent, Lake, Mason, Mecosta, Montcalm, Newaygo, and Osceola. Now, I want to highlight that because as I'm going to talk today a lot about the Kent County Senior Millage, you should know that not only does the millage provide great resources for older adults, we were able to allocate roughly about $13.6 million in 2022. And to give you an idea of what that looks like through our Older American Act funding for the other 8 counties, we have $8.5 million to be able to allocate. So those allocations and those resources of what we're bringing into Kent County alone is why I believe that the Kent County Senior Millage provides older adults with the right to age how they want, and it is extremely, extremely vital to their services. So let's talk about the millage. As I stated earlier, this year we allocated for 2022 $13.6 million. In 2021, by the numbers, we had 34 different agencies that received funding. This provided funding for 56 unique services and 26 purchase of service contracts. So POS contracts is what we call them. And what those do is we purchase service to go into people's homes to be able to provide that care. Over 50% of that $12 million went to our priority services, so adult day services, home-delivered meals, in-home care, and transportation. But really at the agency, we know that that's not all it takes to age. You might need your sidewalks cleared of snow. You may need your lawn mowed. You may need help with legal services, adaptive equipment, home modifications, vision and dental. So those 56 services, we believe through the millage, are really a wraparound to be able to give older adults and caregivers the services that they need. So I am very proud of the Kent County Senior Millage and the job the area agency does with it. It is nothing without our partners. Our partners are really what brings those services to life. You can see before you here, they are listed. And really, I call them the boots on the ground. Yeah, we can rule those contracts with an iron fist, which we do, but they provide those services, and they really are the ones doing the great work. So for our focus for 2023, we're going to shift to making sure that we're empowering those partners, and we're giving them the resources that they need to be able to provide the services through the Kent County Senior Millage, which we are so proud of. So getting to in-house services we offer at the Area Agency on Aging. This is an example of our Elder Abuse Coalition. This is a coalition that looks to end physical, emotional, financial, and neglect and sexual abuse for older adults throughout Kent County. This coalition consists of a large group of advocates ranging from our for-profit, nonprofit, our Kent County Prosecutor's Office, our long-term care ombudsman, our adult protective services, our health department, and our social services. They meet, coordinated by a Cassie Capel, contract administrator at the Area Agency on Aging, to advocate for older adults and educate them to make sure that they are not becoming victims of abuse. So through this, they do case studies, they provide education, they go out and give presentations, making sure that we're providing older adults with the resources they need so they do not fall victim to abuse. RideLink, so I'm going to circle back to this at the end too, but RideLink is a collaboration of transportation partners that work to provide transportation for older adults who are 60 and older throughout Kent County. To qualify for the program, you need to be 60 and older and be a Kent County resident. The partners are as followed: Hope Network, Kent County Community Action, The Rapid, Senior Neighbors, and United Methodist Community House. I think it is a great, great service based on the collaboration between these partners because they all receive information out of one central dispatch, which is hosted at The Rapid, but then also it operates on a $2 donation. We've been pressed on why just a $2 donation. That's because in our response is if somebody's receiving dialysis 3 to 4 times a week, they cannot afford that trip to pay for that when they're operating on a fixed income. So I think RideLink is a great resource. I also think RideLink is a great plan to show how countywide mobility can be implemented, and I will touch on that at the end as well. Conquering the kitchen. So we want to offer a holistic approach, whether that be mental or physical or nutritional, for our older adults and caregivers. So we offer cooking classes at the agency. We have meal planning, how to stay on budget, how to read nutritional labels. As somebody that really appreciates Oreos, I don't always appreciate looking at the nutritional labels. But then we actually we walk with them through the grocery store, pick out a meal, they come back to the agency and they learn how to cook it. We then take that plan and we take that recipe and we empower them to be able to cook those meals. So a lot of times we often see that this class is primarily functioned by male participants. If they're widowed, they said, I've never had to cook in my life, I don't know how to cook, and I'm sick of eating out. So we want to empower them to be able to make the healthy decisions and be able to have those resources and nutritional value that they can get from their home. Dovetailing off of not only nutritional, we have our healthy aging classes. So these programs are offered through a multitude of areas throughout Kent County, but then also the other 8 counties that we serve. And they are actually offered at the area agency as well, back in person. It's the first time since the pandemic, October 18th of this year, we opened these classes back up at the agency. So you can see here we offer different classes such as Tai Chi, Matter of Balance, Enhanced Fitness, Yoga. And not only do we want to focus on giving people the physical activity they need, but also help prevent them from falls, strengthen them so they can play with their grandchildren, strengthen them so they can get up and out of a seat and not have to worry about their well-being. And these classes all aimed, these healthy aging classes all aim to do just that. Our advocacy wing. So advocacy is a large portion. It's actually built in 1974 through the federal and state government that we need to be advocates for seniors. We find that our advocacy group is one of the best in the state of Michigan, Advocates for Senior Issues. We have different, we meet monthly. We meet either at the Kroc Center at the Salvation Army, or we meet out at Frederick Meyer Gardens, where we look to provide resources for older adults. We want to make sure that when policies are being talked about or different countywide initiatives are being discussed, that older adults are at the forefront and they can have an opportunity to ask their questions. So the Advocates for Senior Issues we find is a great resource to be able to do just that. Our Dementia Friends program, we are the dementia lead in Michigan for the Dementia Friends program at the area agency. We want people to discuss dementia, learn the symptoms, meet people where they're at in their stage. It's an awful, awful disease, and we find the more education that we can empower people with, the better they are to be able to care for somebody that has dementia, but then also know what signs to look for to make sure that they are as protected as possible throughout their dementia journey. Our MAP, so our Michigan Medicaid Medicare Assistance Program, I was actually going to bring Bob Callery, our MAP coordinator, with me today, but it's open enrollment. So Bob hasn't seen the light of day in the past 2 weeks. What we look to do for MAP is we educate people on the ever-changing world of the Medicare and Medicaid programs. This can be from prescription drug plans to supplement plans to claims and billing resolution. It is a confusing program if you're not used to it. So we have volunteers throughout Kent County and the other 8 counties we serve to help educate people and pick not only the right plan for them financially, but also health-wise to make sure that they are receiving the services that they need. Our care management's it is the largest wing at our agency, staff-wise and funding-wise. Our care management program consists of a registered nurse and a licensed master social worker who go out to the homes and they create a care plan. And from these care plans, you can get things such as housekeeping, meal preparation, personal care. To qualify for this service, you need to be 60 and older, in need of assistance, and need of ongoing care management. So we don't want to keep people in the program if we feel that they are able to come off of it. So we try to empower them to make sure that we're giving them the resources they need to be able to do so. Our My Choice Waiver Program, so this is for adults 18 to 64 with a certified disability or 65 and older. They need to be financially eligible, they need to be at a nursing home level of care, and they need to be Medicaid eligible to qualify for that program. Now this next slide I'm going to bring up here is what you would see through the My Choice Waiver, but also through our care management program as well. So when I talked about our purchase of service, these are some of the services that we are purchasing to bring into people's homes. Adult day health, medication management, nursing services, home modifications, counseling. We will once again want to make sure that we're empowering older adults with the resources that they need. Future initiatives. So where are we going as an agency? We need to be a factor in housing. We've been talking about housing since I've been with the agency. We've been talking about what resources it's going to take, and quite frankly, we're done talking and we want to make sure that we're able to put into action what that looks like. So we're looking to partner with different organizations throughout the community. Not if they are going to be building a center, how can we provide a continuum of care for the residents in that center to be able to get the services that they need? How can we provide first and last month's rent? A lot of times we find the barrier to housing, one thing that doesn't often come up, but we see quite frequently at the agency is people cannot afford to pay for the moving costs. They can't afford to pay for U-Haul. They can't afford for somebody to come in and move their house. So can we pay for those services and help them get to where they need to go? Technology, connectivity, and support. So the counties, we're pushing out the county's message for that survey that's going around for Wi-Fi and broadband support. But we also find at the agency, if you have Wi-Fi, that's great, but if you do not know how to use the device or tablet or computer, it's all for naught. So how can we provide education and make sure that we're giving them the resources that they need, whether that's a handout, in-home assistance, what does that support look like? Our direct care worker crisis that we're in currently, how can we help work alongside direct care workers to make sure they're getting the resources they need? It's great that we want to professionalize direct care workers. I think that's a step in the right direction. But if it doesn't come with the financial recognition, people are not looking for more education without reimbursement. So how can we help provide that reimbursement and make sure that they are valued members of the workforce? Age-friendly communities, we are on the Grand Rapids Age-Friendly Initiative, excited to see where that goes. And then countywide mobility. I talked about RideLink earlier. I think it's a great blueprint for what countywide mobility could look like. Not only would it help older adults, it would help get the workforce to and from where they need to go. I think we have a great opportunity in Kent County to be the leaders in transportation, which we often find is the biggest barrier to receiving or accessing services. And as the agency, we would be happy to partner on any initiatives that would come from countywide mobility. Then we want to be recognized. So on our strategic plan, we have on there, it's our big, hairy, audacious goal, which is a terrible name, but it is what we have. We want to be recognized as the best agency in the nation for aging and adult services. And we're not there yet because we're not recognized in Michigan as the best aging and resource as area agencies go. So that's where in the next 2 to 3 years we are heading. We're going to be recognized in Michigan as the resource to connect older adults and caregivers to resources and services and make sure that when you hear Area Agency on Aging of Western Michigan, you never have to ask what that is again because it is a great resource. And thanks to the Kent County Senior Millage and groups like yours to help make that possible. That's about as fast as I can go through that presentation. I'd be happy to open it up for any questions.
Wow, very good. I don't doubt that you'll get there to that vision. So, all right, questions, comments from our commissioners. Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you. Thanks for being here today. So the one thing that caught my eye was conquering the kitchen. And, I mean, there's a lot going on to teach someone about labeling, you know, what's good for you, what's bad for you. Sounds like a lot of one-on-one time. Are there any available or possible partnerships where we engage the stores to have things that for this meal you would need this and it's healthy, or pick it up? It just seems that, you know, it can be quite intimidating, the size of some of our stores now, to find ingredients to make a healthy meal.
There is. So Meals on Wheels of Western Michigan and the area agency are working together to almost streamline when you walk into a store what it is exactly you need and have a list to show where that is. We're not there yet, but it is overwhelming for older adults and caregivers who walk in to a multitude of different options they have. So we are working with Meals on Wheels to come up with something similar to what you're saying. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just say that walking into the grocery store is intimidating for younger adults as well. But I just want to say thanks, Kendrick, for all your work, especially kind of advancing the technology being used with the RideLink program. I know it's not been an entirely smooth road, but it's important progress, and I just want to say I appreciate all your efforts on that.
Common.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair.
If you wanted to add a fundraiser to your mix, why don't you get the kids in the 20 ages to do that shopping piece, and they'll pay a fee in order to get that laid out, and I assure you, there are a handful of parents that would pay for that program to get their kids in there. I might be one of them.
Thank you for that, Commissioner Jones.
Could double your budget. All right. Commissioner Bulkowski, you're looking at me like you're going to raise your hand.
Sure. I've been told sometimes I have a conflict of interest and sometimes I don't on this. And so I'm just going to go out on some thin ice and thank, Kendrick for his leadership, definitely to recognize Jackie O'Connor, who retired in September, and before her, the work of Tom Serwinski. Those are the directors I've known through the years on this. And just, again, what the leadership of the Area Agency on Aging, one of my favorite statistics is that when Kendrick talked about RideLink and the collaboration, when the senior millage staff, let's just say, appropriately encouraged providers to come together and collaborate, there was a 38% increase in rides provided with 0% more vehicles and 0% more drivers. So just in that collaboration and eliminating a bunch of empty vehicles, again, 38% more rides. So I will echo his comments concerning countywide mobility, some great opportunities in front of us to continue to collaborate beyond these 5 partners. There's other nonprofit transportation providers out there that can and should be part of this mix, and I know the Area Agency on Aging will provide awesome leadership and partnership as that moves forward.
Commissioner Hennessy.
Thank you for this presentation, and I can certainly believe that you eliminated 22 slides because, as Commissioner Ponstein mentions, food, we have the Community Food Club, which we also fund, where people learn how to buy, because you get a certain number of points. You pay $10, $15, you get a certain number of points, and you are encouraged by paying very few points to get lettuce or apples or bananas, but you pay more points if you want to buy that bag of cookies. So you have to pay more for that. So we're really working with people in many ways. And he just, Kendrick just really touched on some of the programs because he did eliminate 22 slides. Another one is that everybody could participate in is the Caregiver University, which is a program that's once a month, online or in person. And it touches things like, living with someone in your family who has dementia, or it might be on guardianship, conservatorship, and the different kinds of options there. Just a variety of different topics. And it's, one that's available to any of us and to any of the families every month of the year. Just the outreach and the media presence that we're creating at the Area Agency has been really very, it's been growing, it's outstanding. And I'm really pleased at your leadership and taking over now. Thank you.
Commissioner Hennessy.
And I've known all the directors. Larry Murray and his wife Mary Lou were among the first people I met when we came to town in the 80s. So I'm really pleased at the progression of the leadership here.
She's going to replace you,
very young
Commissioner
then.
Morgan.
I don't know how to respond to that. I didn't know all of them.
Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair, and Kendrick, thanks for the presentation. I just wanted to echo my appreciation for the technology, connectivity, and support that you're going to be working on. I think as we go through this conversation about broadband and access, I think there's going to be some ways that we might be able to continue to partner on some of that stuff, especially from a communications perspective, because one of the things that has popped up around the broadband conversation is, how do we communicate services that are available at a lesser cost that are already being provided by the internet providers, and can we do that, which is from a communications perspective. So obviously we've got folks that are seniors and also are low income, so I think there's more than, I think that's awesome that you guys are focusing on the the connection's not any good if you don't know how to use the devices. But I think there might be some ways for us to continue to partner down the road. So I look forward to having those conversations.
Commissioner Green. I will say to that point, one thing we learned at the agency is we started a technology class with Open Your Browser. Everybody raised their hand and asked, what is a browser? So educating people on what we find and we work with every day is extremely important when it comes to technology.
Very good. Any other comments, questions? If not, thank you again, Kenrick, for your presentation. Thank you for your leadership, and we look forward to working with you on some of those countywide challenges.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, our next special order is presentation on First Steps Kent and Ready by 5. And I see we have a number of folks here, so I'll let you introduce yourself as you present. So good morning.
We brought a team. So first, I want to start out by introducing Jennifer Headley-Nordman. She is newer than Kendrick, but we're so pleased to have her joining First Steps in the role of president. She's going to be here alongside us, and this is Amy Turner-Tolley. She's been on our team a number of years doing communications. Her and I are going to tag team on the content, and we're happy to take any questions once we move through the information here.
Good morning. Thanks for having us. We're going to start with just a real quick refresher
Excuse me,
on
before you start, I know that when you tag team like this, you sometimes forget the microphone,
Yep.
so please just pull it closer to you as you go back and forth.
Sure.
Thank
Does
you.
this work well?
That works.
Okay. First Steps Kent was developed out of the Kent County Family and Children's Coordinating Council. And as you all know, the Kent County Board of Commissioners has a long history of investing in evidence-based early childhood programs. Your group has really recognized the lasting benefits to both young children, their families, and the entire community. So we're grateful for that. Evidence-based early childhood programs have been incredibly well researched, and the benefits and return on investment are well documented. When you look at this slide, what we really hope you take from it is that the earlier we intervene, the better. We get the best results when we intervene very early in a child's life. That's when the greatest ROI comes, when we can reach families right after the birth of their child, helping parents build their parenting skills and build strong attachment with their babies, and really help them nurture their child's development from day one. And it's important to note that Ready by 5 services are front-loaded to the earliest years of a child's life. A few reminders about the millage. It was approved by a 57-43 margin in November of 2018. It's a 0.25 mil property tax that generates a little more than $6.5 million a year. So that is $39 million total over the course of the millage. So what are we doing with that money? Ready by 5 funds services and programs that would not otherwise have sufficient funding from public or private sources. We've really been able to build what has already existed in the community. That's allowed us to do two things that you can see up here on the screen. We have focused on bringing services to scale, allowing us to expand the capacity of those things that we know work. We've also invested, and we've talked about this several times in previous presentations, in a strong outreach and navigation network. That's allowing us to reach some of the hardest to reach families in the community and engage them in services. You've seen this slide before, I think, looking at some of the things that these programs do. Ready by 5 is supporting new parents so they can ensure their children are healthy and ready for kindergarten, again, starting very early at day 1. Ready by 5 is increasing access to high-quality early learning experiences. We're really focused on the whole child, building a strong social, emotional, and intellectual foundation. All of that is critically important, and supporting early identification of delays and disabilities, trying to help children at a very early age get into the treatment and support they need. Okay, here's a little bit more about specifically what is being funded. Ready by 5 is currently funding 40 programs and services across the community. I want to highlight, if you look on the right side of the screen there, these are some of the programs and the kinds of things that those programs do. I'd like to really highlight the translation and interpretation services, which were added last year. That's made an enormous impact. Another 1,000 families were served in the last year because of those services being available. Without that, families are not able to receive the services and the support in the language that is comfortable to them. So that's made a huge difference. I also want to highlight that 9.7 million number. I mentioned earlier that the millage brings in about $6.5 million a year. Obviously, that is not the same as 9.7 million that's being allocated in FY 2022. As you all know, COVID has had a significant impact on getting this ramped up. The first 18 months to 2 years of COVID really set us back a bit. Our very first allocations to organizations in the community went out in early 2022, just before early 2020, just before March of 2020 when everything shut down. That set us back significantly. So what are we doing now? We are really working on ramping up and making up for that ground that was lost. Over the last year, we've invested heavily in professional development, reaching all of the Ready by 5 providers in the community and their staff to make sure they are well trained. We are purchasing equipment, supplies, and technology, doing all sorts of things to make sure that the programs that we have in the community are well positioned to serve children best. And Heather's going to talk a little bit more about how we are overcoming that underspent money and what the trajectory of families participating in services has looked like.
Yep, just to take you back in time a little bit, this chart shows the number of individuals engaged in Ready by 5 funded services each month with some of the COVID-19 pandemic contexts. So if you recall, contracts started March 1, 2020, and the stay home safe period began 20 days after those contracts were initiated. So as Amy mentioned, there was a bit of lag, unanticipated lag in startup. But as this period ended and things opened up again month by month, we have seen this number increase. And for year 2022, we've seen utilization continue to increase month by month and are largely on target for spending what we projected we would prior to the pandemic. We do have the underspend that we are also addressing, which you are seeing. You are seeing an allocation that is a little bit higher for this round. And the funds that have not been spent will be put to the best possible use to strengthen programs so they're better long term. So as we spend down these funds, it's important to us that we sustain programs in place long term and are considering projects that are shorter term in scope so we don't find ourselves on a funding cliff in a couple years with them. So about who we're reaching, this is showing services for January through July of this year. The map on the left shows that Ready by 5 services are reaching expectant parents and families with children through the age 5 in every Kent County zip code. And the map on the right shows the frequency in which services happen. The most number of services happening in the zip codes that have the highest number of children and greatest needs. We also want to mention that the Ready by 5 evaluation is well underway. That will allow us to understand how services are impacting families and children in Kent County. So Basis Policy Research and Advancing Communities for Equity are our third-party evaluators that were brought on late last year. Data share agreements with all service partners have been funded by executed by Ready by 5, as well as with the Kent County Health Department. 6 months of data have been fully analyzed to date by the Basis team, and we have convened a partner committee, the Evaluation Advisory Team, that is meeting quarterly to advise on the process. So this includes members from Kent ISD, K-Connect, DataWise, Kentwood Public Schools, First Steps Kent Board, as well as the Kent County Administrator's Office. So they will be meeting in early November to review the 6 months of information. Data analysis for the remainder of 2022 will continue, and we anticipate that year 1 report will be done about March of 2023. Additionally, Basis has reported to us that they have secured data share agreements with just about all school districts in Kent County, so there's about 25, 26 of those. This will allow Ready by 5 service data to be connected to school district assessment data for each child entering kindergarten to determine how funded services impacted K readiness. So a benefit analysis of these services will then be developed, and this work will be completed in 2023. So before the millage, services were underfunded and many were not available to families here in the community. Well, babies are not born with a user manual, so these programs are important to empowering parents to be their first teacher. Additionally, rigorous evaluation of high-quality home visiting programs have also shown a positive impact on reducing incidences of child abuse and neglect, improving birth outcomes such as decreased preterm births and low birth weight issues, improved school readiness for children, and increased high school graduation rates for mothers participating in programs. Cost-benefit analysis that have been done to date on these programs show that high-quality home visiting programs offer return on investment ranging from $1.75 to $5.70 for every dollar spent due to reduced cost of child welfare, reduced K-12 special education and grade retention cost, and lower criminal justice expenses. So we're able to scale these programs to reach many more families in Kent County with this funding. And Corewell, formerly Spectrum Health, their Baby Scholars program is one of these programs. This program uses the evidence-based play and learn strategy model through weekly home visits conducted in English and Spanish by certified parent coaches. During each visit, parents learn responsive parenting skills that support healthy development, as well as they interact with their infant or toddler, evidenced by the program showing better social and academic outcomes amongst under-resourced children long-term. So the mom of 2 Baby Scholar graduates says, Baby Scholars not only helped with providing resources for my boys, but they also helped all of us, the whole family. We're incredibly grateful and appreciative to have such wonderful people who supported us during our journey. These funded programs support children's social emotional health in many ways and through the full continuum of 0 to 5 ages. Especially coming out of a pandemic, we see more children and parents needing support for issues related to behavioral and social emotional delays. This is commonly playing out in childcare and state-funded early learning programs. So recent data has shown that within early learning, there are significant disparities in children of color being suspended for behavioral concerns. So Arbor Circle's Keep Early Education Positive, the KEEP program, is one example of an innovative program that fills gaps in early learning programs to address these specific concerns. So this is an evidence-based model that enhances early education by teaming a mental health professional with early education staff, as well as families to support both positive emotional and social development. So we heard from the mother of a 3-year-old named Joey from Sparta. Mom says that her son is excited to attend his first year in preschool, and this is really because they became involved in the KEEP program, and their therapist has been successful with supporting their teachers, and the teachers are learning how to co-regulate his when his emotions elevate. So this program has additional indirect benefits, such as supporting child care employee retention by improving the employee's capacity. There is a decrease with their own stress. So this is particularly crucial as we are facing shortages in the workforce at this time. And if this program was not in place, early learning teachers would have few to no options to support children like Joey who require specific behavioral supports while in care. So this often results in suspension from early education programming, and children miss out on important early learning experiences that set them up for future success. The Ready by 5 millage is essential to programs such as the KEEP program. There are no funding options currently available in Kent County for this program. So with that, thank you. We just want to say thank you for the opportunity to present today and share a little bit about the benefits of the Ready by 5 millage. And we are happy to take any questions at this time.
Very good. Thank you so much. Questions? I think Commissioner Ponstein was first and then Commissioner Antor.
Thank you for being here today. So I got two questions. One's a little bit longer, one will be real short. So when we went on this journey of starting a millage, you know, the question is, how big of, or how large of a millage will the taxpayers tolerate? How can we spend it versus what the needs are? So when I started my political career, when I heard 6 million, that was a lot of money 40 years ago. And I think today, 6 million isn't a lot of money at all. So what are the shortfalls and what are the needs still out there that we're not addressing? And what are the opportunities without raising the millage for more injection of dollars into the programs that you are providing?
So one of the things that we used as a data point before we came to you with the first millage request was a gap analysis where we looked at what we want to have in the community based on research and demonstrating what really works for children and families and what we have currently. We are updating that now, and we'll have that again next year. But we know that we are back to one of the important points Heather made is that we are back to where we thought we would be in terms of spending, and we're actually spending a little bit more than that had there not been a pandemic. So obviously that set things off a little bit. We know there are still really significant gaps in childcare. And, I mean, that's gotten a ton of attention nationally. And there are some, childcare is not part of the Ready by 5 millage, but there are things that we can do to support the childcare industry. And we're looking at more things that we can do to support childcare, which is so critical to children and families. So that remains a really big gap. We continue to focus advocacy efforts at the state and federal levels on bringing in more of the resources that are needed to support and sustain the childcare industry so that families and children have access to great quality childcare.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. And then my second question, you had mentioned your work with the school districts, which obviously is a great place to start. Where do the independent charter schools and the parochial schools fall within the scheme of working with school districts?
So the piece that we're working on with school districts is specifically around the evaluation. These programs operate outside of K through 12, really working to prepare children and make sure that they're kindergarten ready. So when they enter kindergarten, they're ready. There would probably, as far as that data collection, there probably would be a couple data share agreements that would not be in place with the evaluation, but we're confident that we have a significant number of children that we will be including in the data analysis to be able to show that there is impact.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Thank you very much for this comprehensive report. I appreciate it. The one thing I didn't hear mentioned, though, is I want to talk about a little bit, were kids that perhaps fall within the autism spectrum. I know you talked about, you know, starting kids early. That's the key to all this, and especially with autistic kids, we found that starting really early and intervening makes all the difference in the world. And I'm assuming the autistic kids are implied in this someplace. You just didn't specifically talk about them, but I'm just wondering if you could kind of give us some information on where you're at on that piece of this puzzle.
So when we reference the early identification of developmental delays and disabilities, autism is a big one that we are referring to. One of the things that has been a really critical piece of this millage is the outreach and navigation services we refer to, and that has not had any other public funding to support it. That is really dependent on the millage. Because of that, we have been able to connect with families either prenatally or right after the birth of their baby in the hospital. And one of the things that the outreach and navigation specialists connect families to is developmental screenings. There's the most well-known one is the Ages and Stages questionnaire. There are others, but those are screenings that families do. Families can do them at times with their pediatricians, with other early childhood professionals, and that helps identify very early if there is any indication of a delay or a disability, and then we help connect families to services early. So one of the big benefits of early childhood services is the early identification of those issues and getting families into services much more quickly. Ultimately, you get much better outcomes for the children, and it's much more cost-effective because you don't need as much remediation and special support in school.
All right, any other questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Bulkowski.
First, thank you for your continued hard work on this. Thank you for your financial prudence through the pandemic. You know, spending money's easy, not spending it can be hard, and then making sure we have that good plan. You know, it addresses the allocation item that's on our agenda. We did get a memo from Jenny James concerning the questions we had about that cliff when the millage runs out, or not when it gets renewed, and then, but we'd have to still reduce down to that 7 million. Anyways, all that being said, the part, you know, that I want to continue to emphasize is that that ripple effect, to use that cliche, because when you were talking about childcare, you know, who cares about the kids and the babies? It's the employers. You know, I'm an employer. We have 32 employees. Luckily, my kids are in their 20s. Their mom worries more about them than me. But I have employees with little kids, and that's a huge issue, childcare. You know, and we keep talking about we can't find direct care workers. We can't find people at all price points out there, and how childcare helps employers keep folks. And if you're worried about childcare, can you do your job? So again, this huge ripple effect, how we're helping, and I appreciate Commissioner Antor's comments about children with autism, and how, again, that huge ripple effects with this investment. So thank you for your evaluation of this, and just really showing to the community, as we invest early and often, good results will happen, and if good results aren't, I know you'll shift that investment. So again, thank you so much for your work.
All right, any other questions or comments? I do see one. Commissioner Wooden.
Sorry, Chair, and thank you, Chair. So on the childcare front, because, you know, I can at least speak from some degree of experience. You know, we had a gap in childcare for about 2 weeks this summer, and it was incredibly stressful for us, and certainly impacted both my performance at work and my wife's performance at work. And, you know, were it not for some recently retired grandparents, we probably would not have found a solution. Can you talk a little bit about I know you've referenced what you've done already to support the childcare industry. What additional things do we believe we can do within the confines of the current millage language? Can that include training folks to become home care providers? Can it include additional PD for child care centers? What can we use these dollars for within the confines?
So also considering too, I mean, there's investments that are happening at the state level, so we're thinking very carefully about NATSA planting funds and leveraging all available resources. One of the key areas that we have identified is it's really tied to that navigation piece. There is not currently a system that connects families to open slots. There is a website that's periodically updated, but it still requires parents calling 5 places. And it isn't real clear about, you know, geography. You know, sometimes parents require care where they work and not where they live. So that is an area that we would really like to address, building out a system with partners. We've had some preliminary discussions, and we have a work group actually looking at this next week. They'll continue to meet. What does this look like, and what does it take to build a more responsive system to parents' needs? If we can mesh that along with the workforce investments that are happening at the state, you know, I think we'll be able to build out a system that meets parents' needs here in the next. Begin to see some with that.
We'll also look, when we do the updated gap analysis, that is one of the things we're really going to look at is what else can this millage do in its current form? And as we look at a renewal, what could we do differently to better support the childcare component of this? So that is one of the things that we'll be looking at. Heather mentioned the KEEP program that makes a big difference in terms of keeping children in childcare. So we will look at other opportunities to really bolster that. And we'll be bringing that to you.
Thank you.
All right. If nothing else, I do have a couple of questions. So I know that when Ready by Five first approached the board years ago and you were asking for the millage, we put some pressure on you by reducing the amount of millage you had asked for to go to the voters, and we reduced the length of time, I believe, a bit. So did put you at the pressure points of being able to prove that this does make a difference in the community. And then, of course, COVID hit and even more pressure on you. Nevertheless, this will come back, I think, at the end of next year is when it runs out, and so it'll go up for potential renewal at the end of next year in one of the elections next year. 2024. You said something about the report coming in. Your return on investment report will be completed by March of 2023?
So there's 2 years, and there is a bit of a lag with the data. So it takes us to get the data to the evaluation. So December, they should have that wrapped up. February, and then the actual context of the report by March. So that will be for year 1. But they are going to continue to evaluate year 2, which begins in January. And we should have some findings where they are going to start tying the data from Ready by 5 to the Kent ISD K readiness assessment piece. We should start to see some of those results mid to quarter 3 next year.
So I recall that in those considerations, I think Commissioner Skaggs and Commissioner Beebe and I were there. Professor Heckman was sort of the standard for the ROI analysis. Is his work still the standard for that?
Yes.
All right. So you'll be matching,
memory.
pardon me?
Good memory.
Yeah. So you'll be matching our performance against those, I think you had the Heckman curve in here, because I think that this community and this board is looking to see, is this investment really making the kind of differences that we thought it could? And I'm hoping that even though we've had to deal with COVID, that we'll still have a credible analysis to be able to show that kind of return on investment for the community.
So I think one of the things that it's really important to remember with Heckman is that he studies long-term. So he's actually now done a second generation study that the children who had these investments very early and in these really high-quality programs, what has happened now to their children. So, I mean, we're in, really the sort of second full year of a millage, that was heavily impacted by COVID. So we can't show the same kind of return on investment because those returns haven't shown themselves yet. They come as the children go through school, they come as the children go into adulthood and are more productive citizens. So there's no way that in a 6-year millage we can demonstrate anywhere close to those kinds of numbers because the children are just too young. But we will be able to show what the impacts are, the earliest impacts for the children who have benefited, and we will continue to long-term look at.
But you'd be able to identify, are you on that curve? Is it
Yes.
indicating that
Yes.
this is where we're heading, and so we can make educated assessments about that?
That's the intent, yeah, to get to that kindergarten starting.
Yep.
But yeah, we just have to keep in mind that the big returns come later in life.
It's true for a lot of things, isn't
Yeah.
it? All right, well, look forward to that report, and I'm sure you'll share that with us when it's completed and distribute it to the board. So again, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, next item is public comment. This is an opportunity for anyone from the public to address the Board of Commissioners on a matter that is only item on the agenda. So if you wish to address the board on an agenda item at this point, please step forward, identify yourself, and you have up to 3 minutes. If you're interested in a general comment, the second opportunity for public comment is later in the meeting. And I see no specific public comment, so we will move to the next item, which is our consent agenda, and I will, call on Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I move we adopt and pass the consent agenda, item 7 on our agenda.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Teal. Comments or questions? If not, this is a roll call, so Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt the consent agenda, Commissioners Antor. Yes. Bolter. Yes. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Bulkowski.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Hennessy. Yes. Jones.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
LeGrand. Yes. McLeod.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Ponstein. Yes. Skaggs.
Yes.
Sparks. Yes. Teal. Yes. Womack. Wooden.
Yes.
Chair Stuck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. The consent agenda is adopted.
Thank you. We'll now move to our resolutions of the day, and starting with 8A, and I will call on Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is my privilege to move Resolution 108. It comes to us from the Ford Airport Authority, and it's the Gerald R. Ford International Airport Authority Revenue Bond Series 2022.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Bulkowski. Any comments or questions on this resolution? Commissioner Antor.
Thank you, Chair. I've struggled with this one quite a bit. I love our airport. I love the fact that I can now fly out of Kent County inexpensively. I don't have to drive over to Flint or Chicago to get a cheap flight. The airport has come a long ways, and it really is a great regional airport. The problem I'm having is right now with interest rates skyrocketing and construction costs being sometimes doubled or even tripled, this is really a horrible time, I think, to be taking on something like this. These aren't our dollars, these are taxpayer dollars. And I've been telling my kids over the last year to be really careful about how they're spending, and not to take out any loans right now until things kind of correct. And I just feel like by passing this, it's going to make us look kind of tone deaf to what's going on right now, not only across the country, but in Michigan. People are hurting right now. I mean, I paid $5.50 for a gallon of diesel fuel yesterday, and even though we just released a bazillion barrels of oil into the market, I think gas prices came down 10 cents. That's not changing anybody's life. And people are having to make decisions right now. Do I pay my utilities? Do I get groceries? Do I fill up my tank? It's unprecedented times, and I think as much as I love our airport, I just don't think this is a good time to do this. And I think things are going to get worse before they get better. I'd strongly suggest we hold off on this until after this election cycle, including the 2024 election. So hopefully we can get back to some sort of semblance of normalcy where we can do this and not have to worry about the consequences. I think 3 or 4 years ago, if we would have had this in front of us, I don't think anybody would have raised an eyebrow over this. But people are looking at everything we're doing now, all these things that we're approving with a fine-tooth comb, and I just don't feel right about this. This is a huge ask, and it's a 30-year bond, I believe. And I just don't think now's the time. And again, it has nothing to do with the airport itself. I love our airport. They've done a great job, but I'm going to be voting no on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Brevy. Vice Chair Brevy, excuse me.
Thank you, Chair Stack. As we have seen construction costs increase, I work in the industry, I sell construction supplies. It's part of my everyday life, dealing with the cost increases. What the projection in the future is, that's not going away. I think this project, the more we delay it, the more expensive it'll get. And not only in terms of the dollar, but also customer satisfaction. These two projects are key in addressing the significant growth that's happened in the airport and traffic the last several years. We have a couple members of the airport board or airport staff here. We have Tori and Matt Zielstra, and if they want to just address the where the dollars would be coming from. You know, it's not a direct, directly, you know, from our tax base. It's a couple of fees that are connected to this. So if you want to just highlight that a minute, that would be really helpful.
Is that a request of me to have them?
Yes, could you have them come up, Stan?
Good morning, Tori.
Good morning.
Can you respond to the commissioner's question?
Be happy to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, fellow commissioners. So, yes, we do have revenue streams in place for paying for these. These are not taxpayer dollars. Understand the pledge is, because we're asking for this commission to approve of this bond so that we can take advantage of the great credit rating that the county has for being good stewards of their funds over the years. And by doing that, we're saving about $50 million over the life of these 30-year bonds. So as Commissioner Breivy had indicated, the issue that we ran into for needing these projects doesn't go away just because of the economics that we're facing. So in 2019, which was our best year ever, we were leaving people and their baggage behind because we could not process them through the screening for passengers and baggage and the facility in time. We're back to those numbers today. So we're at 96 going to 97% of our 2019 numbers, which again were a record year. In fact, last month we reported to our board, or yesterday reported to our board that our previous month in September, we surpassed 2019 numbers. So the trajectory of the growth and recovery is very strong. We're back to having those same issues. If we hold off and don't do this project now, we looked at, and this was a question of our board, what if we did this 5 years from now? That same project costs us $50 million more for the exact same project. We get nothing more out of it other than paying additional finance costs. We also had this issue back several years ago when we had the parking garage modification and made that huge investment and enhancement. We did that in the recession. That is our #1 revenue source. That has been a great investment by the county and the airport to do that. We see these two projects to be the same. Understanding the financial times might not be the best, who knows what we're going to head into, but assuming that things get worse will only make the project more difficult for us, and it again doesn't mean that the project or the needs for the projects go away. We still need to do them. So happy to take questions or comments on that, or if there's specific details, or Matt, if you want to add anything to it.
We are very sensitive to the interest rate. Feel like the sooner we can get to market, it's going to be better because the interest rates.
All right, why don't you stand by in case there's more questions from commissioners. Appreciate that. So Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. So I know we don't have on the agenda this conversation, but I do feel like it'd be good in the future for us as a Board of Commissioners to have a larger conversation just about how do we assess, you know, debt issuances, you know, in the scope of all the factors, you know, costs, AAA bond rating, et cetera. So I do think that'd be good to have in the future. Debt is, you know, can be risky, and it's just expensive too. I think I ran the numbers, you know, roughly, and at the airport over the next 10 years, we'll be spending about $2 million a month just in interest. Now, the counter argument to that is costs are going up so much that maybe that's still worth it. But $2 million a month in interest is a lot of money. It seems like there ought to be, you know, a better way than just debt financing. And I know there's other things in the mix here with these projects. I really appreciate Tori and the staff of the airport, Board Chair Korndike, you know, answering some of my questions just about the risk to the taxpayer here. And I think the airport does an extraordinarily good job with capital investment projects. The projects are really well done, I think thought through very effectively over kind of a long time period. So I have great confidence that if this passes, that the project will be done extremely well, and the investment will be really well received at the airport. So struggled with this one, but at the end of the day, I just can't get there with having our airport $500 million in debt.
Commissioner Wooden.
Thank you, Chair. So a few questions both to admin and maybe to our staff from the Airport Authority. As was stated in finance and in our board work session, I don't remember the exact percentage, but our current bonding, both unstructured and structured, as a percent of our taxable value is incredibly low, and low enough that if we were to accept this bonding and the potential bonding requests that have been discussed in previous meetings, we would not risk our AAA bond rating, correct?
Yes, staff had that conversation with both our financial advisors, two sets, and with rating agency staff.
Wonderful. And then, as Commissioner Brevi noted, or Vice Chair Brevi noted, I apologize. Vice Chair Brevi noted, the debt that we are approving is structured debt, and the fact that it's paid off through fees paid by both car rentals, the airlines themselves, and the passengers, correct?
Correct.
So, and when I go to the last question, since a significant portion of this bonding is tied to the baggage handling, and you're noting baggage handling issues, it only takes a while before that becomes a perception that Gerald Lord Ford Airport is not the place you want to go because you might get your bags lost, right? I'm not suggesting that's happening for 1 second, but it only takes a while of untreated maintenance before that becomes a perception, and that perception then influences customer behavior. And when our other bonds that we've backed are structured based on consumer behavior, I for one think that making sure that we are maintaining maintenance and upgrading maintenance to account for the growing demands only makes sense. And then moreover, when we talk about our cost issues and the cost increases, a significant portion of that is infrastructure that is utilized by a supply chain. And while I realize our airport is mostly passenger air, it is a key part of our connectivity and our transportation infrastructure. So, while I realize it is difficult, I can't think of I certainly think there are greater opportunity costs not to take them at this time. So that will be why I'm voting yes, and I appreciate the questions you've answered today. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan.
I'll let everybody know I'm going to vote when it comes time to vote. So, a couple of things. There's risk in everything we do, and I think that if you thought for 1 second that this airport didn't do a detailed risk assessment on this ask, I'm telling you, we did an in-depth risk assessment on this ask, and we became an authority to compete, and I want to compete. And we're competing with Chicago, we're competing with Detroit, and we've been very competitive. And if we don't put ourselves in a position to grow this airport, which is a huge economic impact to this region, it's going to be a huge mistake. And sometimes it takes a lot of courage to do this. I understand debt probably more than I need to. But this airport is in a position where it's going to be just a very big asset to this area in this community. And if we're going to continue to grow and continue to move along the lines that we set forth back in 2014 through 16, sometimes you do have to take a risk. Now, I don't like debt, and I know that every time I fly out of the airport, it costs me money to operate that airport. But if I don't fly out of that airport, it doesn't cost me anything. Is that true or not true?
Correct. No taxpayers' monies.
So, I think we manage our airport very well. I think it's in a good cash position for this ask. And we really need to make the experience of that airport something that is customer-friendly. And remember, this is the front door. This is the first thing folks see when they come to West Michigan and Grand Rapids. And so I'm very proud of the activity of the airport. And I'm close to supporting this, and I'll let you know as time goes. So, thanks.
All right, we'll let you think about it for a while, Commissioner. Commissioner LeGrand.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Burrell and I had the opportunity to go out, and you gave us a wonderful tour of the airport, and we discussed a lot of the issues that you face. And I was really struck by what a balance of public and private the airport really is, because for most of us, we feel like it's a private enterprise. We bought a ticket, we show up, we pay for our parking, but we have this big public underpinning of the project. So it's a very interesting, tightrope that you walk, and I really appreciate the solid business sense that you've brought to what is also a public enterprise. Our AAA bond rating, is a wonderful thing, but I really feel like it's not meant to put in a trophy case and never touch. It's meant to be used, and it's meant to support investments in our community, important investments in our community. Our business community, the growth that we're experiencing, our employers need, especially as we want to attract tech jobs, life sciences job, we need to have travel as a fundamental underpinning of how that's going to work. And our constituents, our consumers, we need to know that we're developing these really strong pinch points in the system. And the way to solve it is by this investment. So I feel like we're serving not just the business community, but our constituents as well by doing this work. And for those commissioners maybe who can't get entirely on board, I feel like that's a solid reason to have our full 3 commissioners on the airport authority, because we'll have a greater say in this kind of conversation before it gets to the full board. So in case anyone is wondering, I will be voting yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Chair. So I appreciate all of the work that the team from the airport and the staff put into getting this before us, and all the research and everything that went into preparing this proposal and working on this project and setting things up. We had the chance to sit down and talk with you guys and ask questions of staff, and I think that was really helpful. And I recognize the need that we have to do this for the benefit of the region, the economic factors, all of that. So all that is to say, I guess we're signaling how we're voting today. But I will be supporting this, but my caveat, and this has nothing to do with you guys, so I'm going to direct back to the chair, which I should have been doing from the beginning. My caveat, similar to what Commissioner Kallman mentioned, is I really think we need to have a conversation about revisiting our debt policy as a county. And that's something that we've had some conversations about, one-on-one different commissioners, but I think it's something that I'd like to see us do in a public way, to talk about, the pros and cons of different policies, what are, if we should be implementing or looking at some kind of a debt limit that's outside of the statutory limit that's offered us by the state. Commissioner Wooden mentioned the statutory limit, which is it's pretty high. Right now it's $3.7 billion, but if we hit that number, that's not like, oh, you can go right up to it. Like if we hit 3.7 and $1, we've got an emergency manager coming into Kent County. It's more like that kind of a situation. So I'd like us to look at, what might be a better way for us to look at what debt we take on moving forward. Because, structured debt, revenue supported debt, ultimately anything that we're taking on is a long-term liability for our taxpayers. So I think we need to be prudent about when and where we're doing it. So I think this today is a good place for us to do it. However, it's a huge amount that we're adding to our debt capacity. So, or not capacity, but current burden. So I'd like to have that conversation. So for me, it's not a yes or no today. It's a yes and because I think we need to continue with that conversation. I'd like to do it in a public setting. So I hope we can continue that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And we have started that conversation, at least, as you know. Yes, Commissioner Bolter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tori, if I could put every single bond project, anything we would need to do, it would be in your capable hands, because you guys have such a awesome track record of just really succeeding and bringing an awesome product to the citizens of this community. My only concern, and I will be voting yes for this, of course, but I guess it's for future board members to think about, you guys need a list of projects coming down the pipeline probably in the next 5 years to ensure that you're not supporting something that's awesome and we need to do it, but then you can't do other projects that may be really needed in the future, or an emergency comes up that you really need, that you then don't have that borrowing capacity or that bonding capacity because we've spent a lot of money on one project. So I would just urge you to please think about that in the future. I think it's incumbent upon staff to get you that information very soon as you're making these decisions, and I hope that that happens soon. And thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Hennessy.
This has been an interesting discussion. I appreciate Commissioner Bolters, because that's sort of along the lines I was thinking in terms of, what are we going, we've got this proposal in front of us now, and we tend to look at things piecemeal. What's in front of us today? But what do you see coming up? What is your strategic plan call for that we might have in the next 5 or 10 years more bonding resolutions like this?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Happy to answer that for you, Commissioner. Just yesterday, our Board Finance and Legislative Committee approved our capital budget for 2023, as well as a 5-year capital improvement program that is consistent with our 20-year master plan. So our board, when Commissioner Morgan says we do a lot of due diligence, we do a lot of planning, we do a lot of analysis, we do that all the time with all of our projects. So we do have those lined up over the next 5 years. To more specifically answer your question, the next new large project that we'll need to do is to address parking again. Unfortunately, we're not able to do that right now until we can relocate the air traffic control tower. So one of the projects that we're asking for you to support today is that consolidated rental car facility that does give us about 1,000 spaces back for public parking in our garage while it moves all the rental cars into their own facility. So it buys us some time, it buys them some spaces, but in the future, there are plans for a 6-story parking garage adjacent to the existing one, but it can't be built until the tower's relocated, and we're working on that project as we speak.
Hold on. Any other commissioner for a first comment? If not, Commissioner Coleman, I'll give you a second comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to take a moment on the kind of taxpayer risk aspect. I do appreciate the kind of thorough planning that the Airport Authority has done in terms of mitigating that risk to the taxpayer should there be any future repayment struggles. And so I think that planning and that structure is good. And while the Airport Authority could issue its own bonds, I do think in this case, if we go forward with this bond issuance, that it makes sense to have the taxpayer co-sign with the Airport Authority in order to provide the significant kind of cost reduction. So I do think that piece makes sense as well. And Mr. Chairman, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat just waiting to see what Commissioner Morgan's going to do on this vote.
All right.
Second round real quick.
Yes, Commissioner. Commissioner Morgan.
Yeah, Commissioner Morgan. We talk about bonding and debt and all that, and over the years, I think that I've relied on our fiscal services for some of that direction. I'd be kind of really hesitant to not rely on their advice, because they're with us every day. And so don't forget about the impact or the influence or the advice from our fiscal services department. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? If not, I'll take the opportunity to make a few comments. So, like many of my colleagues, an ask like this and the kind of debt certainly bristles the hair on the back of my neck. But the relevant considerations to me start with the fact that this board has made a commitment to our community that we would do what it takes to allow them to thrive. And I think this function, what we do at the airport, is a critical part of what it is for this community, our individuals, our residents, and our businesses to thrive. So we are behind the airport, I'm behind the airport, and I accept that running an airport costs a lot of money. This is a big operation. So the numbers are going to be big when we talk about that. At the same time, I also think that it's relevant to know the cost of not doing this is big. You mentioned the cost of what it would take for the airport to do this bonding without our bonding authority behind it would cost the consumers another $50 million. That's not insignificant. The cost of not doing this and allowing the market to do what it does, which is to vote by where they go, in not having a state-of-the-art or capacity to process what we do at the airport effectively and efficiently, that is a cost. So that has to be taken into consideration. I also look at the fact that this is not to build a nice skybox for frequent flyers. This is essential core functions at the airport, the kinds of things that everybody that uses the airport is going to expect us to do and to do right. And for us to do it right costs money. And the last consideration to me is, yeah, I don't like debt, I don't like bonding either, but the risk to the general taxpayers is pretty minimal in this case. I think there's no experience that we've had with the airport where you've come back to us and made us pay as the guarantors on these bonds, because the operations are so sound, so fiscally responsible, that I think the risk to the taxpayers is really negligible. There is a risk, but it is fairly negligible. So for me, adding those together, I'm going to support this and wish you well, and thank you for the work that you do there. With that, I will ask for the roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 108, and Commissioners Antor. No. Bolter.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Bulkowski.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Hennessy.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Coleman.
No.
LeGrand.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Sparks.
Yes.
Teal.
Yes.
Womack. Wooden.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 16 yeas, 2 noes. The motion passes. Resolution 108 is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, for the next item, I will call on Commissioner Bulkowski for a resolution.
Thank you, Chair. I move Resolution 109 of today's date, which is an amendment of our lease with the Gerald R. Ford International Airport as laid out in the action item.
Thank you. Is there support?
Support.
Supported by Vice Chair Brevy. Comments or questions on this one? Anything further, Al, on your side? No. All right, this is, if there's no comments or questions, this is not a roll call. I think this is a voice call. So all those that support the resolution, please say yes.
Yes.
Those that oppose, say no. It is approved. Thank you. We'll move to the next item, item C, and I will call on Commissioner Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move Resolution 110. It comes from the Equalization Department. It's the 2022 apportionment report.
Second.
Supported by Commissioner Jones. Comments, questions? I see none. This, too, is a voice vote, so all those that support the resolution say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed say no. It is approved. Move to the next item, and I will call on Commissioner Sparks for a resolution.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move Resolution 111, ready by 5, millage allocations for 2023 from the Administrator's Office.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner McLeod. Questions or comments? I see none. This is a roll call. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 111, Commissioners Antor. Yes. Bolter.
Yes.
Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioners Bukowski.
Yes.
Burl.
Yes.
Green.
Yes.
Hennessy. Jones.
Yes.
Coleman.
Yes.
LeGrand. McLeod.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Sparks. Teal.
Yes.
Womack. Wooden.
Yes.
Chair Steck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 18 yeas, 0 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 111 is adopted.
Thank you. For our next item and next resolution, I will call on Commissioner Bolter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move Resolution 112 of today's date, the approval of the mission statement for the CAA Amphitheater.
Thank you. Is there support? Supported by Vice Chair Brevy. Comments or questions on this one? I do not see any. It is not a roll call vote, so all those that support the resolution, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. No. It is approved. For the next item, I will call on Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Steck. I move Resolution 113 of today's date, the Kent County Rebranding Initiative.
Is there support? Supported by Commissioner Morgan. Any questions? I will say that there were some questions raised by a couple of commissioners that I've asked the administrator to respond to before we take up further consideration.
Yeah, I think the main thing I'd like to address is cost. There have been many times you see organizations do huge implementation of the brand, and it costs a lot of money to change everything over. And really, we're not looking at asking you for additional money outside of what we've had in the budget, and I'll explain that. So the one thing we will be moving on right away, should you approve this, would be trademark registration. That's approximately $1,000, which we can absorb into this year's budget. The next phase of the brand launch will include internal staff training and asset development. And representatives from Well Design and Truscott Rossman will continue the work per their contract with the county. I think there's $50,000 left in that contract that's already been part of the approved budget by the board. And basically, there will be work sessions with department directors, program managers, and other staff to outline the new brand. This will help garner additional support and ensure everybody's confident in how they're using it, the imagery and the messaging. Also, Well Design will develop assets for the various departments, including the templates for letterhead, business cards, web page layout, report covers, brochures, and PowerPoint presentations. The training and asset development, again, are included in that contract that we already have with Well Design and Truscott Rossman. So there are no new costs associated with this phase of the brand implementation process. Also, after the templates are developed, departments will then be able to customize and produce the materials as needed. Any production costs would come from those individual department budgets, as is the current process. With that said, our internal training will instruct departments to update items as needed rather than replacing all materials at one time. It is important to note that several departments have items budgeted. For example, Kent County Community Action awaits this decision because they are needing to put decals on vans, and one department has new uniforms coming, and they want to put the new image on that. But they're waiting for it to be approved before developing and producing those items for which costs they have in their budget. Therefore, the new brand may be more visible in some departments at first. There are no costs associated with changing our social media channels or newsletters, which are two of the most outward-facing county communication assets. Typically, you would find a large expense with a brand implementation being a website redesign, which we have in the IT budget for next year. So this is something that we needed to do regardless of a new brand, and that is in the budget, and the budget will cover what we need to do with the website to implement the new brand. So the other thing I wanted to mention is wayfinding and signage through our facilities. You know, as we know, we're in the final stages of updating our space needs study, and we're looking at building potentially a new county administration facility. And so we would not be wanting to invest in wayfinding in this facility, and when something is so close to on the cusp And that, if that did happen, that would involve not only building a new county facility, but also possible sale of 82 Ionia, and then a redo of this space for other county function, and then also 280 Ottawa too. There would be, that building would be redone as well. And so the wayfinding would be implemented in those facilities as those projects come up. I should also say, we've got the North Services facility under construction right now, and so we can easily flip to a different image because it's already in the budget for wayfinding in that new facility once it's constructed. So in conclusion, the new costs are very minimal over the next budget year. We have, I think, thought ahead and planned for how that will be rolled out. And then just wanted to also just mention process, because I know this has taken a while. I think the contract was signed in 1999, and we've had money in the budget.
1999.
Did I say that again? I did that in an email, too.
2019.
I don't know what's wrong with the old brain, but I'm stuck in 1999. 2019, a contract was signed. Is that better? Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Did I hear that song this morning? No, I don't think I did. So 2019, and then it's been budgeted by the board in 2020, 2021, and 2022. So far, I mean, the process has cost $122,500 over those 3 years. And I just wanted to mention, too, that it has been quite thorough. Surveys were sent to 82,000 stakeholders. We had 4,400 responses. We've had 6 focus groups with 37% minority participation. We had 2 sets of meetings this year with commissioners in groups of 3 where suggestions were made and the image was altered as part of going through that process. And then also, we did have a commissioner that had some concerns with the Your Partner, Your Place, so we went out and tested the market again for that. And what we find is that people resonate strongly with Kent County as a place, but they resonate much less strongly with Kent County as a partner. And that's an opportunity for us. I think we need to develop better knowledge and understanding about what county government does and how we really do partner with people, really in all aspects of their lives when you really think about it. And so there was really no negative associated with that slogan, though, as far as going out and testing the market again for the how that resonates with the public. So I think that covered all the questions that I've had from commissioners over the past week or so.
All right, thank you. Maybe not, though. There may be more here.
There may be, indeed.
Commissioner Antor.
Thank you. I appreciate the due diligence on that. Alan may wonder why it's so important to make sure with our new signage and stuff, we're looking at this building. Just a reminder, back in the day when we had Grand Rapids Junior College, they went ahead and re-signed that entire campus. I don't know if anybody remembers this. And because they thought the signs were kind of old, so they re-signed everything at a huge cost. And just months later, we voted to change the name to Grand Rapids Community College. So if you wonder why I'm sometimes jaded about government and institutions of higher education, situations like that, which I don't know if it was just lost on people, but it was just incredibly stupid. I appreciate your due diligence, so we're not going to fall in that same trap. Thank you.
Yeah, we're not going to do that, Commissioner. All right, Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Chair. I'm glad to hear that there won't be additional expense because hopefully this is something that can be revisited. When I look at the logo that's proposed, it reminds me an awful lot of Kalamazoo. And once you see that comparison, it's hard to undo that. I think there's ones and designs that can be better. I'd like to hopefully have that revisited. Because of that, for this one, I will be voting no.
Thank you. Commissioner, or Vice Chair Breedy.
Thank you. I was pleased with all the opportunities that we had as commissioners to participate and share our, thoughts and concerns, and I appreciated how those were also directed to the consumer focus groups, and, changes were made. I made a few suggestions, and I think, overall, the process has been long, and we all have different ideas about design and implementation. But I think in the long run, I'd like to see this move forward And I would hope to, when working with the departments, to create their logos or, something that defines their department. There's a lot of, strong input from the staff and from the department heads, and definitely get them involved in that process as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Oh, all right. I think Commissioner Bolter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Next.
We desperately need a new logo, there's no question. This is slightly outdated. But, this was brought to me when I was chair. We were starting down that process, and then COVID hit. And, people were not worried about logos. They were worried about living. We pressed pause on it. Somehow it got resurrected, and I just think the timing of this is terrible. Right now, people are on fixed incomes trying to figure out whether they can fill their gas tank or get their groceries, and we're worried about spending money on logos. So I'm concerned about the optics here. I think, regardless of whether I like the logo or not, I just think it's poor timing, and so I will be voting no as well. Thank you.
All right. I think Commissioner Hennessy was next.
Probably, I'm going to vote yes today. I can't say that I'm thrilled with the logo, but I do think, that we do need something beyond the seal to represent us. I looked today, it was really, you become logo conscious. And so today, as the area agency made its presentation and showed their 34 agencies and their logos, and as we looked at first steps, I somehow still sort of feel like there's an oomph that's missing, but I think that this is, a little bit of a step forward. I do like the way in which it would be conveyed as we get to web pages and the colors and that type of selection. And it's interesting because later today, we're actually going to be considering the brand logo for the zoo. And it's interesting to look at, the process that they went through as well, and in terms of how they, look to using the logo to express the mission and the values of the agency as well. And maybe it's easier, everything seems easier at a zoo. It's obviously a lot of fun and and energetic and active and has lots of possibilities. But I still sort of, we just kept tweaking the same design over and over again. And I'm going to vote for it. I'm not a designer. I'm just going to vote for the process of going forward.
Good. We're fun too, Commissioner. Commissioner Coleman?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say I like the process. The timing concerns, I can see that point for sure, but the process I think was a good one. I think I like the look of the logo. I think it fits, with it's the shape of Kent County. It's got the sense of water, which is so important to our county. And it's really, I think, versatile for, all the other departments to be able to utilize in a similar way. With those comments, though, I'm going to leave Commissioner Morgan waiting to find out how I actually vote on this one. Thank you, Chair.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
All right. Commissioner Ponstein. Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Stack. Just for clarification, this isn't being retired, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, thank you. That will remain the seal of Kent County. Well, the courts have a seal, but we will still use it for some official documentation, correct? Well, we will. Yeah.
The intention is not to necessarily replace the one with the other, but to supplement. Fair?
Yes.
Fair. Commissioner Antor?
I just want to go on, I like our logo, our current logo, so I'm a no. When I see it, I know exactly what we're talking about, so.
Okay. I think you're next. Go ahead, Commissioner Wooden.
Just briefly, just because, and I might just be beating you to the punch, but given the opinions that have been, the variety of opinions that have been shared, I'm going to request a roll call vote.
You get your way on that.
Every so often.
All right. Nothing else. I'll just add, I think that one of the things that is relevant to me on this one is there is a cost in further delay in this process. It has been going on for at least 2 years now. And not only does the process continue to cost if we keep reviewing and reviewing, but as the administrator identified, that there are some departments that are going to be doing some things that without this being resolved, they will put on the old logo and may have to change it, and the nightmare that Commissioner Antor presents to us may actually happen if we continue to delay. So I'm concerned about that. And the other is the design team process has been very thorough, and how you could not have exactly taken all of my recommendations as I had them, I don't understand, but I get that. But the process is perhaps more important to me, that in fact we've gone out to the community, we've tested these concepts out there, we've looked for broad consensus on these ideas, and while it's very likely that a number of us see tweaks that didn't quite fit what we thought, I think we are there and time to move on. So with that, I will take the request for a roll call vote and ask the clerk to go ahead and take the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the motion to adopt Resolution 113, Commissioners Antor. No. Bolter. No. Vice Chair Brevy.
Yes.
Commissioner Spolkowski.
Yes.
Burl.
No.
Green.
No.
Hennessy. Jones.
No.
Paulman.
Yes.
LeGrand.
Yes.
McLeod.
Yes.
Morgan.
Yes.
Ponstein.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Sparks. Teal.
Yes.
Womack. Wooden.
Yes.
Chairstuck.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 13 yeas, 5 nays. The motion passes. Resolution 113 is adopted.
Thank you. That brings us to the end of the resolutions for this morning, and we will now move to public comment. If there is anyone from the public that wishes to address the board on matters within our general jurisdiction, you may do so now. Please identify yourself by name and address, and if you will note, we have 3 minutes on the public comment. Good morning, DeAndre.
How you doing, everybody? My name is DeAndre Jones. I stay at 967 Tamarack Avenue, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Northwest. First of all, I'd like to say, a lot of people know me from working in the political space. I'm actually an independent. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm actually an independent. More than political parties, I believe in people, because political parties don't always support people, especially good candidates. And so as much as I've knocked on thousands of doors for different people and advised campaigns, talking to those constituents and different people in different areas, I've learned that people just like real, genuine people. They like politicians that are really going to be genuine and be themselves and stand for the people and their needs and serve their needs and their wants. I've sat at the Republican headquarters. I've sat at the Democratic headquarters. And I can say that I like politicians on both sides of the aisle, but I'm just more of an independent thinker, and just more than just political parties, I believe in people. I believe in some of you commissioners. You guys are on different sides of the aisle. Some of you guys are Democrats, some of you guys are Republicans. And I like you guys from different parties. I don't dislike one party. I know one day if I run for any type of political seat, I'll probably have to be a Democrat or a Republican, because there's not a lot of support for the Green Tea Party or the Independents, you know what I'm saying? But I'd definitely like to say also that just continuing my work in advocacy, this is the city of Grand Rapids, Michigan. We have over 11,000 plus businesses that generate over $250,000 in revenue, and only 70 of those businesses are people of color ran. And so when you guys distribute those ARPA funds, I want you to actually think about that we have over 11,000 businesses that are generating $250,000 in revenue, but only 70 of those businesses are ran by people of color, and that's a big economic infrastructural problem. And some of the money that you guys are going to be distributed can help some of those businesses raise their revenue and be able to contribute to the economy. We don't even have 1,000 businesses, or at least 100 businesses of people of color that generate over $250,000 in revenue. So that's a serious problem to me. More than just talking about my project, I just want to continue to reiterate what I was saying is just consider other people's projects, people of color. You know, you guys are have the power to really help our county, our districts, the different districts that you guys work in. Even though you guys have to look over different villages, different townships, and you guys do jurisdiction in different areas, you guys do business here in the city of Grand Rapids, and this is where you do your administrative work. So I just want you guys to think about the things that I said. I appreciate it, and have a good day.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Daniel Scott, longtime resident of Kent County. Comment about the finances. Holy Scriptures give some very clear directive on borrowing. Simply says, owe no man nothing but love. And another scripture says, whoever you borrow from, you become their slave. Scripture says, this act does the Lord hate? Yes, this act is an abomination unto him, hands that shed innocent blood. And I'm just here again today to speak up for those fellow citizens that have no voice, specifically the 120 that are murdered every month at 320 East Fulton, on average. They are fellow citizens just like we are. And please consider their lives. I'd like to share with you another method that is used there. It's called the saline murder method. It's where the baby is actually in the amniotic sac, is injected with saline, dioxin, or potassium chloride, and the baby does feel the pain. Prenatal science confirms that now over and over again. The baby is not only poisoned, but also chemically burned. Chemically burned alive from the inside out. The outer layer of his skin is burned off. It will take him over an hour to die. The saline solution also induces contractions, so about a day later, the mother will give birth to her dead baby, although some babies have survived. This is what it looks like. Please support our district attorney, Chris Becker. He wants to arrest that man. That man should be arrested, Mr. Gordon. And do all you can, please, for our fellow citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. I see no other public comment. We will now move to the next item, Administrator's Report.
Yes, just a few items. You did receive a briefing memo on a potential creation of a Kent County Insurance Authority. I'd ask if you could let me know if you have any questions. We'll be having briefing meetings soon, but if there's anything I can get a head start on, I would appreciate that. Also, we're just got some normal things going on, like finishing the budget process, labor negotiations going on with 3 of our unions. Been having some meetings on affordable housing and what a revolving loan fund would look like, so we can get some information to you on that. Also, obviously, the ARPA work continues as we work with Chair Steck to start to have some options for the board to start considering and talking through. Also been meeting with Grand Action and the CAA, a few people on amphitheater design and cost, as far as trying to bring that to a conclusion. Also Greenway, a lot of things going on, coming from a lot of directions there. Next week, we interview candidates for Strategic Initiatives Director, so hope to have that position on board soon. And then also, we're 2 brown bags in our second round of brown bag lunches. We do those, I think, at 13 different locations throughout the county with employees, just to get some face-to-face time, get to know people and hear concerns, questions. And we typically start off with a little presentation on what's hot at the county at the time, and then also open it up to hear from employees. So those have gone very well. And the first round they did, and the second round so far are going very well too. So that's it for today.
All right, thank you. Move to the next item, which is reports. Any reports? Yes, Commissioner Morgan.
You go first.
I'm going to talk about the dispatch authority, and I will be giving this report, my last report, in writing, because that's the process now. But I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that we have a pretty good cash position there, and we're working to pay off our bonds early. And there are some challenges that we're going to have to address in the next year. Some of the inflationary issues at the Sheriff's Department needs to probably be addressed. But it's been a lot of fun serving on that committee. I kind of knew a little bit about this, and just appreciate the opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair Beatty.
Thank you, Chair Steck. I have 2 brief items. The first, the Department of Public Works is offering a free tire drop-off event on November 12, and it's going to be at the Safe Chem facility on Wealthy. The second item you may have seen, it's kind of caught a lot of media attention. The West Michigan Sports Commission has launched an $11 million capital campaign, and they're hoping to create several new softball and baseball fields at the Meyer Sports Complex in Rockford. And one thing that's really exciting is they would be adding 20 pickleball courts. So once that is all built and ready to go, I would challenge all of you at pickleball. So hopefully we can have a community event there. But that's been a huge asset to the county, and bringing travelers in, visitors, bringing a lot of revenue into the area. So it would serve our young athletes, our college athletes, and other amateur athletes as well.
All right. Any other reports? All right, I see none. We will move to the next item, which is miscellaneous. And before I get to Commissioner miscellaneous, I did ask our clerk to give us an update report on elections, since I hear there's an election coming up November 8.
Mr. Chair, you should feel there's an election coming up.
Every day.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for asking me to do this report. I really appreciate it. As you all know, there are 12 days to go. Not that anybody is counting, but everybody down in my office is. We are very deep in preparation, both in my office and with our local clerks. In the middle of testing our equipment, we do a lot of, elections aren't just election day. As many of you know, we do a lot of preparation pre-election for part of our checks and balances, ensuring that the election is secure, transparent, fair, and accurate. They're testing the equipment right now. We've tested ours in-house in the county, and our server as well. Those are public. Those local tests are public, and we've been encouraging members of the public and anybody who's interested to come and watch. That will ensure the equipment is operating, functioning properly, and that the tapes are zeroed out before any ballots are inserted and tabulated on election day. That training schedule is on our website at kentcountyvotes.com. We're also, our staff is working on training our election workers, our bipartisan election workers. Jurisdictions that have less than 10,000 residents it becomes the county's responsibility to do the training for election workers. We have some of our jurisdictions, a couple that exceed that population threshold, that still ask us to do that training, for which we do. So we train about 1,500 of our nearly 2,000 election workers. This is new, based on what we experienced in the primary election. We are partnering with our local clerks and asking all of our election workers in the polls and the absentee counting boards to not only take the oath of office, which statute requires, but also to sign a code of conduct, so that they are fully aware of the magnitude of the role that they're taking on and the serious nature by which they have to operate under. Other training or other preparations, every election, before every election, not just since 2020, we work with the sheriff's office to make sure there's a plan in place for safety and security, not just of the voters, but of the election workers and of the election officials. Conversations getting ready for November 8th will be taking place here shortly. And then we're just continuing our efforts, our concentrated efforts to educate the public beyond how to vote and where to vote and that kind of thing, but actually the process of how the elections work from pre-election day, election day, and then the post-election process to help bolster public confidence and trust in the elections. Just a real brief update on where we stand with voting right now. As of this morning, Kent County has issued 119,550 absentee ballots. We have had returned 62,480. So we're at a 52% return rate. We expect to continue steadily issuing ballots and then also having, a flood of those ballots being returned. So being at 52%, I know I know those are going to start really coming in now. We, in these even elections, we tend to have high to mid 90% return rate, so you're going to see a lot of those absentee ballots back. But with that, we are at a 12% voter turnout already 12 days before the election. So we're geared up for a good day and a good post-election as well. So if you guys ever have any questions, my door is open, and I really want to thank all of you who have taken the opportunity to come. Many of you have come and watched our election ride-along that we provided for commissioners. A lot of you have kind of come into my office or given me a call or talked to Jared with questions and concerns, and I really appreciate that. And I appreciate you kind of taking on this role, this mantle that I've taken up in terms of being an ambassador for the county and how we do our elections and the security of our election process here. It's certainly not perfect. No human process is, but that's why our checks and balances are really important. So I want to thank you for participating and really serving as a liaison to the constituents as well. Be happy to answer any questions you have, but I'm trying to keep it low time because I could talk all day.
I've heard that. So if you do have questions, we could do a few here, but I'm sure that all of us know how to reach Lisa if you have follow-up questions, that you can reach out that way. But Commissioner Ponstein, would you like to ask a question?
No.
Okay. Pardon me? Miscellaneous, okay. Yeah. All right. So anyway, thank you, Lisa, for that. Appreciate that report. And also thank you to you and your department for all the hard work. This was sort of your D-Day, so appreciate it.
Super Bowl time, baby.
All right, Commissioner Ponstein, miscellaneous.
Thank you, Chair Steck. So Commissioner Morgan, I don't know what I've become as an elected official, but I sat through a discussion about bonding, and I didn't once mention the high rate of fees that are charged.
Thanks for not bringing that up. Appreciate that.
I think everybody knew his position.
Any other miscellaneous from commissioners? Yes, Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to welcome 4 of my sons who came today. And I can assure the Board of Commissioners that they all wanted to come. This is not me dragging them here, so appreciate them being here for a little bit of a civics lesson. And thanks to the row behind them for their help throughout.
Maybe you've got some instruction for Commissioner Wooden on daycare and how to manage that. right here. Any other miscellaneous? Yes, Commissioner Morgan.
We have a board member retiring from Rockford Ambulance, Fran Roberts, been on that board for 40 years. So today is her last board meeting at Rockford Ambulance, and I think 40 years of service is pretty commendable. Thank you.
All right, anyone else? If not, just a couple of reminders of upcoming meetings. Note the November 3 meeting is an evening meeting. 6 o'clock, I believe, is the scheduled start date. And then make sure you have on your calendar the November 14 meeting, which is a 5:30 scheduled start. So with that, I will turn back to Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. I move to adjourn, subject to the call of the chair, to Thursday, November 3rd, 2022 at 6 PM for an official meeting.
Supported? All those in favor say yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all.